Hello everybody, my name is Sniping is Fun, and welcome you all back to my next The 5 list. I present to all of you here on YouTube. And today's list is going to be a continuation of my The 5 list I've been doing recently of certain video game franchises from certain video game companies that need to make a return. This is going to be my fourth official one on said, series of lists. I've already done one on Nintendo, and on Sega, and on the PlayStation. Today's list is on another video game company that, just like all three I mentioned, relates to them in two different ways. One, they have a lot of iconic, beloved, lovable, historic, legendary franchises. And two, they also seem to forget about a lot of their franchises and hold them in their little vault of games to bring them out maybe every now and then, or just throw them in the collections or not do a sequel on them because they want to focus on a lot of other different franchises they have and not focus on these other ones. And that goes to Capcom. And Capcom, like I said, they have a lot of beloved, legendary, video game franchises: Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, Resident Evil, Mega Man. A lot of different franchises, but just they're beloved, iconic, and loved and historic in the video game industry in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. Just like Nintendo, just like PlayStation, just like Sega. And they also seem to forget about a lot of these franchises and only throw them in crossover games like Project Cross Zone, or spin-off games, or throw in costumes or color palettes, or some sort of weird cameo for some of these characters. So it's like, yeah, they're another video game company like the rest of the industry apparently, because this is going to continue when I do more lists after this with certain other video game companies I haven't done yet that seem to forget about a lot of their franchises. And it's Capcom. It's kind of sad because they've had their ups and downs, and it seems like lately they've had a lot of downs. And bringing some of these franchises back might bring us back to the days of the Capcom that we all know and love. The 80s Capcom, the 90s Capcom, the early 2000s Capcom. It's still barely there, but they're holding on by a string at this point, and they seem to forget about a lot of their franchises. A lot of franchises that not only their fans, but a lot of gamers, love, want to see return. And before this intro gets on super long, let's get this started on my The 5 Capcom franchises that I feel need to make a return. And before I get started, I'm going to basically say I'm not going to include Mega Man on this list. I wanted to so bad. They need to bring Mega Man back so bad. They seem to throw them in little things here and there. We have Mega Man X and Marvel vs. Capcom, Infinite. They still put Zero in those games. They throw in Mega Man Volnut and Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, all these little cameos. They've done the Legacy collections lately. They've done a lot of different little things, but it's like we need to see a return of a main Mega Man, like Mega Man 11 or a Mega Man X9 or something, a main one. But everyone wants that. That's the most definitive choice that everyone wants to see from Capcom, brought back is the Mega Man franchise, Legends 3, X9, something from the Star Force, series, something. But that's the reason why I don't want to include it on this list, because everyone wants Mega Man back. It's the most definitive, basic, knowledgeable answer that anyone would come up with. So that's the reason why I didn't include it. I want it just as bad as these other 5, and I think it should be brought back as just as much as these other 5. But I didn't include it because of that, because everyone would say Mega Man is the most definitive answer anyone would ask for a Capcom franchise they want to bring back. So before, like I just basically mentioned before, I'm sorry, I got off the rails with the Mega Man thing. Without further ado, before this intro goes on too long, the 5 Capcom franchises that need to make a return. And I'm going to start off with a fighting game franchise from them. That's not Street Fighter, and it's not Marvel vs. Capcom. And yes, for those of you that probably are newer fans of Capcom or don't really know so much about Capcom franchises, they do have other fighting game franchises, some of which they haven't used in a while, at least 2 or 3 others. And before I even get started on doing the list, 2 of them are going to be on this list. I didn't want to fill this list up with all their fighting game franchises, so I had to make a cut somewhere, and I know it's going to probably piss off some people. I didn't include a certain franchise. I want to see it just as bad as the other 2 fighters. But I didn't include because I want to go for their other franchises too. I don't want to just stick Capcom fighters on this list. And the first one of the 2 fighting game franchises on this list is Rival Schools. Rival Schools is a 2-on-2 3D polygonal fighting game from about 1997. It was in the arcades, I believe. There was a PlayStation 1 game. They did a sequel to that game in 2000 on the PlayStation 1. It's basically 3D Street Fighter set in high school, where these different high schools in Japan are just going to war with each other, and it's It is a fun, interesting concept. It's in the same universe as the Street Fighter characters, so you see a character like Sakura in this game. I don't know if she originated from Street Fighter and then made a cameo in here, or if she started in Rival Schools and then was obviously later put as a cameo in, now in Street Fighter. But it's in the same universe, so it doesn't really matter one way or another. It's the franchise where characters like Kyosuke, Batsu, Hinata all came from. Batsu from Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. It is a fun series. It's a different fighting game compared to like Street Fighter. Street Fighter is like a 2D plane. This is more like a 3D fighting arena type, or 3D polygonal. Like think like Tekken, but not as 3D. I guess would be the best way of saying it. It came out around the same time as Tekken, but it's like a 3D fighting game, and it has an interesting concept of all these schools going to war with each other. Think like the Warriors, but like set in Japanese high schools where they all want to, different clubs, different, academic type students and the teachers and the faculty and all just go to war with each other. It's actually an interesting concept, and it's so weird. Like it is a beloved franchise from them, and it is a beloved fighting game franchise from Capcom, and they don't seem to even remotely want to bring not only bring the franchise back, but bring these characters back. The only semblance we've ever seen in the recency of, Rival Schools is that Sakura is still in Street Fighter, and we've seen Batsu and Tatsunoko or Capcom, and maybe a couple of the characters in like Project Cross Zone and whatnot. So it's like, why don't they bring it back? They have other fighters. I mean, they still do Marvel vs. Capcom. They do Street Fighter. Maybe they don't want to like have their own competition of their franchise competing with each other. But it's like everyone knows Street Fighter. So if they want to buy Rival Schools, it's not going to impact them buying Street Fighter. A lot of your fans, Capcom, will buy all your fighters. And a lot of fighting game fans like to buy millions of fighters, like myself. I'm a big fighting game fan. I'd buy Rival Schools as well. It's a different enough concept from your Street Fighter to be different. It's a 3D polygonal fighter. And nowadays, that's not, everything's 3D now, so pretty much that makes sense. That doesn't really differentiate it, but it's like the original concept of all these schools, the swimming club, the music club, the faculty, and all these stuff, and the fighters, and just come on. Rival Schools would be such a fighting game franchise that you should bring back, because then we can start maybe seeing more of these characters interact with Street Fighter, Capcom. It is a fighting game franchise from that is beloved, that people want to see brought back. And I see a lot of people bring up the series. And it's like, you have more than one fighter, and it's different enough to stand out from Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom. That's my first one. My second one will go to a more recent franchise from Capcom. It had a game recently, the last couple of years. But it's a franchise I think needs to stick around. It hasn't had a game recently. There's been about like 8 games or so since like the PlayStation 2 era. It has an anime based off it. It is a very similar Mushu type game to like Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, and it is Sengoku Basara. Capcom, this is like, your equivalent to the Mushu games from Koei Tecmo, the Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors, except it's super more anime oriented, super more, crazy, wacky, super anime move oriented. If you haven't ever played a Sengoku Basara game, that's exactly what it is. Just take, Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors, more so Samurai Warriors because it's set in Japan, and crank it up to 11 plus. And it's insane, wacky anime-ness. It is a really fun game. The first game in the series was around 2005. We got it we got the game called Devil Kings. And then we never got any more games pretty much from that until we got, Sengoku Basara Samurai Heroes, which was like on the PS3 and on the Wii and whatnot around like 2010. And the latest game, Sengoku Basara 4, came out in 2014. Yeah, I know it's only 3 years ago, and that's not a very long time ago, but it's a franchise I feel need to make the return, because it's like there's so much you could do with it. There's so many characters they didn't really add, and it's a crazy, wacky, side equivalent to the Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors games, and those franchises have been going on since like the 2000s. Koei Tecmo has been doing their Warriors games for a long time. So you got yourself some competition there, Capcom, and you could really bring it, because this is different enough from the Warriors games that it still stands out, and there's such lovable characters in this franchise, and it still stands out. And it's a franchise that, even though it's not been dormant too long, it's only been dormant for like 2-3 years, I do think needs to be returned. It's not necessarily the same as some of these franchises that have been locked in your vault for like 10 plus years, but at the same time, it is a franchise I feel you need to continue to keep coming up with. And I'm assuming you are, but this list on this video is specifically saying, make sure you don't forget this thing. I mean, the anime was pretty freaking popular. There's more stuff for you to do. It's a love franchise, and you can easily be in like an original concept to like the Warriors franchise. That's 2. third one goes to one of your RPG franchises. And a lot of people probably know Capcom more for their fighters than their RPGs, but, you know, it differentiates you. Like I basically said with Sega and Nintendo and PlayStation, you don't really do too many games in this genre. It will stand out from your Street Fighters and your Resident Evils. If you do this franchise, and that franchise is Breath of Fire. And this is another one just kind of like Sengoku Basara that's not used. It's just like, here's the thing, and this is what a lot of Breath of Fire fans will agree with me with. This franchise was such a beloved, it started out like on the Super Nintendo in 1993. It had like 6 games since then, and what a lot of people don't like about where this franchise went, Breath of Fire 6 is a phone game. It's an Android game, and a lot of people do not like that. Breath of Fire needs to be returning to consoles. Make one for the Switch, make one for the PlayStation 4, make a mainline one that's not a side phone game where your fan base and other RPG gamers out there will like your game. Like this is a franchise. This is a classic franchise. It is one of the definitive RPG franchises from the 90s. It rivals, Chrono Trigger. It rivals Final Fantasy. It rivals, Shining Force and Phantasy Star and all that stuff. Breath of Fire was a top-notch RPG, a mainline console RPG that had big, historic, legendary, lovable games on the Super Nintendo, on the PlayStation 1, and the PlayStation 2, and whatnot. And you're just gonna make it a freaking phone game? I'm not saying that makes the game quality bad, but a lot of people want to see the return of Breath of Fire on a home console or a handheld. Make something for the 3DS, make something for the Switch, make something for the PS4, like I basically mentioned. This is, I know it's like a lot of my lists, like entries on this list are more like franchises that have been gone for a long time, and Sengoku Basara and this aren't really like that because Sengoku Basara had a game a couple years ago, and Breath of Fire's latest game is on a phone. It's still recent, like I think it was, last year, I think it came out. But I also am including franchises that should return to form, that should return to their glory days. And Breath of Fire's freaking glory days are not on a damn iPhone, are not damn Android games. It should be a console RPG that nowadays can rival Kingdom Hearts, the Tales series, and freaking Final Fantasy. That's my third one. Here's my fourth one. It's my second of the fighting games, and that goes to Power Stone. I exclude Darkstalkers, and I know a lot of people would probably say I should put Darkstalkers on more, but I was looking for more of an original fighter, and what Power Stone is a 3D arena fighter. It's basically Capcom's equivalent to like a Smash Brothers, except instead of a game that, is like a cameo fill game, it's their own original characters, all these different characters from different parts of the world. It's like an international fighting game, which is not original really. It's like Tekken and Street Fighter, characters from Japan, characters from America, Germany, Russia, all these wacky fighters. Throw them in an arena, you get some items, you get some super special ultimate attacks, and you just go at it. The first game was in 1999 on the Dreamcast, and the second one came out around 2000. It hasn't had a game since 2000. It's been 17 years since Power Stone. It's been 17 years since Rival School and Power Stone. Your other major fighting games like 3D Polygonal, 3D Arena, differentiates itself from Marvel vs. Capcom and Street Fighter, and it's a beloved franchise that people want to see back. It'd be like your equivalent to freaking Smash Brothers. We can easily have this on the Switch. It would make a whole lot of sense on the Switch. It could even make sense on the PlayStation 4, or if you want the Xbox One. I guess, or a multi-platform game, I guess, now at this point. Like, hey, Capcom, maybe bring the first 2 out as like a collection on the Switch and whatnot, and then gauge popularity, which I'm sure is still there, because I see it all the time online, for a Power Stone 3. And like I said, I didn't include Darkstalkers. I know Darkstalkers is beloved too. I just was looking for something that stands out more. Darkstalkers is basically if you took Street Fighter and put in like vampires and zombies and cat girls. So I was looking for something more original, a 3D fighter and a high school polygonal 2D crazy wacky fighter. So that's my fourth one. And my fifth one goes to a more recent franchise that has had 4 games so far. The first one came out in 2003. The second one came out in 2004. They had 2 spin-offs, one of which was on a DS and one of which was a fighting game. And a lot of people like it too. And that goes to Beautiful Joe. Where in the hell is Beautiful Joe 3? What happened to this franchise? The spin-off Red Hot Rumble was a fighting game. It was kind of like a Smash Brothers like fighting game type of thing. They had 2 games on the GameCube. They put So they put them on the PS2 as well. There was a spin-off on the DS. It's like this was a beloved, crazy, wacky, side-scrolling beat 'em up franchise from you, where you just play this random guy named Joe who becomes a superhero, becomes a beautiful Joe, and saves the world of cinema and everything. He can slow down time, speed up time, do a lot of movie-based powers. And it was just such a beloved, fun franchise from you from like the 6th generation of consoles. Where did it go once the PlayStation 3 and Wii and game, and the Xbox 360 and all that came out? It just disappeared. And this is a beloved recent franchise from you. Capcom, please bring back Beautiful Joe. You don't have many beat 'em ups. You don't have many side-scrolling beat 'em ups, except for like Final Fight, which should also come back. But I was looking for something that was more original, and this one's a little bit more original than Final Fight. Sorry to say. So I'd say bring it back because it's such a beloved, wacky, crazy franchise. You still use Beautiful Joe in a lot of different things. He may not have been in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, but you had him in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. So I'm assuming there's someone on your team that still loves the series. Please bring it back. And those are the 5 Capcom franchises I feel should make a return. We have Rival Schools and Power Stone is my 2 fighters I want to see them bring back to accompany Marvel vs. Capcom and Street Fighter. We have Sengoku Basara and Breath of Fire and Beautiful Joe. This list was more recent. There was not too many franchises on here that have been around for a long time. That's basically was Rival Schools, Power Stone, and Breath of Fire, and they're not even super, super old except for Power Stone and besides for Breath of Fire. And then more recent stuff like Sengoku Basara and Beautiful Joe. But a lot of their franchises, even more recently, they still decide to disappear. So Capcom, please bring some of these franchises back. You diversify your lineup. We don't want to just see you continue to bring out like Street Fighter, Monster Hunter, the occasional Phoenix Wright, and Resident Evil. We want to see these other franchises too. And a lot of the fans of yours, a lot of gamers around the world that grew up playing your games in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s, grew up playing your variety of games, and you don't seem to do that much anymore. You're almost as bad, if not worse, than Nintendo and PlayStation and Sega and other franchises come. But that's my list. My 5 Capcom franchises I feel need to make a return. Put in the comment section what you guys think. Do you guys want to see these 5 back? What Capcom franchises do you want to see make a return? My name is Type is Fun. Peace. Please subscribe if you want to. Have a lovely day and see you all in the next list. Bye.